Hey, fellow Ishies, welcome back to the channel. For those of you that are still here, lost a couple of subscribers, which with the amount of subscribers I have is a lot. So I just want to say appreciate those of you that are still watching this. And I won't always be doing silly stuff like this. Like there's a lot of, I don't want to make this a political channel. There's a lot of out there and gossipy political stuff. And while I do have some strong opinions on things, I wanted something that was a little bit lighthearted. And frankly, this is a bit more fun. I've always liked languages and dialects and accents. So after the series is finished, I will get back into that. That does take a lot more research than this silly fluff stuff. But I kind of felt like this is kind of what I needed, and I will be busier as the summer goes on too, at least until the fall. So it may take me a little bit longer, but I appreciate those of you that are here, that have subscribed and actually watch the videos. But today is episode 7 of Death of a Powerhouse, and it's titled Following the Money. So in case you don't know, I've taken a current event and put some old words in it, and it's not exact. I think many of you, if you follow the Charlie Kirk story, will kind of see some similarities, but it's not exactly the same. And I'm just having a little bit of fun, and some of these characters I actually really like. I bet you can guess which one is me. But let's get into it. One of the great disappointments in life is that corruption is rarely clever. As a child, I assumed powerful conspiracies would involve secret volcano layers, coded messages hidden inside symphonies, and villains sophisticated enough to at least own a decent wardrobe. Instead, most corruption comes down to 3 things: money, ego, and the assumption that nobody's paying attention. The insurance folder had not yet been found, but Charlene's notes were beginning to reveal why she created it in the first place. The list of names I'd discovered at the end of the previous week led me toward a collection of contracts connected to Velkrain. At first glance, they appeared entirely legitimate. Development projects, infrastructure projects, humanitarian partnerships, education initiatives. Every proposal arrived wrapped in enough noble language to make a saint misty-eyed. Charlene, however, had written a note beside one contract. Follow the ownership. Simple advice. Excellent advice. The kind of advice that causes expensive people to become nervous. When I followed the ownership, the same names appeared again. Different companies, different countries, different logos, same people. The deeper I dug, the more the entire arrangement resembled an elaborate fandangle designed to prevent ordinary humans from understanding where the money actually went. One company paid another company. That company funded a consulting group. The consulting group advised a foundation. The foundation partnered with a media organization. The media organization promoted policies that benefited the original company. Round and round the money traveled until tracking it felt like chasing a squirrel through a hedge maze. At one point, I covered my office wall with charts, arrows, and notes. A visitor arriving unexpectedly might have mistaken me for a mooncalf attempting advanced mathematics. Then something clicked. The contracts weren't centered around development. They were centered around minerals. Rare minerals. Strategic minerals. The sort of minerals governments become extremely interested in whenever they discover someone else owns them. Charlene had apparently reached the same conclusion months earlier. One note simply read, "Why are we funding stories about countries we want resources from?" That question made me womblecroft. Not because I knew the answer, but because I didn't. The further I looked, the less comfortable the explanations became. A charitable organization would suddenly appear in a region rich in resources. Media campaigns would begin discussing humanitarian concerns. Political leaders would demand action. Consultants would arrive. Contracts would follow. Then somehow companies connected to Velkrain would emerge with remarkably favorable agreements. Perhaps coincidence, mayhap not. Charlene certainly seemed skeptical. One exchange between her and Eric particularly caught my attention. At the time, they were still presenting a united front publicly. Behind the scenes, however, conversations became strained. Charlene, have you reviewed the extraction agreements? Eric, the lawyers have. Charlene, that wasn't my question. Eric, everything is legal. Charlene, I didn't ask if it was legal. There are moments when a marriage reveals itself through a handful of words. That felt like one of them, because legality and morality are distant cousins at best. The conversation continued. Eric, you're seeing problems where there aren't any. Charlene, then explain them. No explanation followed. I noticed that happening quite often. People loved telling Charlene that she was mistaken. Fewer seemed interested in trying to prove it. The documents revealed similar tensions with Griff. For years, Griff had presented himself as Charlene's trusted compeer. Their friendship had become a part of company folklore. Yet the more records I reviewed, the more that friendship appeared strained by questions that Griff didn't want asked. One text exchange stood out. Charlene, how long have you known about the Velkrain partnerships? Griff, which ones? Charlene, exactly. I laughed, then stopped laughing, because Griff never answered. Instead, he redirected the conversation toward publicity concerns. That struck me as odd. Charlene was discussing contracts. Griff was discussing narratives. The distinction mattered. A former producer from Veritas Meridian eventually helped me understand why. According to him, the company had quietly transformed over the years. Information remained important, but information was no longer the product. Narratives were the product. The goal wasn't necessarily convincing people what to think. The goal was deciding which questions never received attention. At first, I dismissed the claim as the bitterness of a former employee. Every organization eventually accumulates disgruntled former staff members. Many possess explanations for everything and evidence for nothing. Then I discovered Charlene's notes. She had reached the same conclusion. Again and again, she referenced broadcasters, consultants, government officials, and investors appearing around the same projects. Not identical organizations, identical people. That distinction haunted her, and now it was haunting me. Meanwhile, Jake Fife continued his public crusade against anyone questioning the official narrative. Watching Jake explain international finance was rather like watching a Gaudelpus explain astrophysics after being struck on the head with a shovel. His confidence remained magnificent, his accuracy less so. At one point, he spent 20 uninterrupted minutes assuring listeners that concerns about Velkrain were absurd. The performance might have carried greater weight had he not accidentally contradicted himself 3 separate times. Griff immediately rushed to rescue him. That was becoming a pattern too. Jake stumbled, Griff corrected, Jake agreed. The entire arrangement possessed the strange energy of a Whittle congratulating himself for understanding a joke he had never actually heard. Then I found the page that changed everything. It wasn't a contract. It wasn't a text message. It wasn't even a financial document. It was a handwritten list. Across the top, Charlene had written, "People who already know." Beneath it appeared names, executives, consultants, government advisors, media personality. Eric's name appeared, Griff's name appeared. Several names I recognized from the Velkrain contracts appeared. Some were circled, others crossed out. A few contained question marks. At the bottom of the page, Charlene had added a final observation. Just one sentence. They aren't hiding the money, they're hiding the relationships. I stared at those words for a very long time because suddenly the contracts made sense. The media campaigns made sense. The consultants made sense. Even Griff's behavior made sense. The money wasn't the story. The money was the trail. The relationships were the story. And somewhere inside those relationships was the reason Charlene stopped trusting the people closest to her. As I closed the file, a folded sheet of paper fell onto the floor. I nearly ignored it. Then I noticed it wasn't part of the original documents. Someone had inserted it later. Across the top appeared 3 words written in Charlene's handwriting. Not from Velkrain. Nothing else. No explanation. No context. Just 3 words. I stared at them for several seconds. Then I turned the page over. The reverse side contained a single question. A question Charlene had apparently written less than 2 months before her death. What if Velkrain answers to someone else? And for the first time since this investigation began, I realized Charlene may have been looking at something even larger than money. Well, that'll do it for episode number 7. Just a few more episodes to go till you find out who killed Charlene. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you want to hear the rest of the story, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks.